and we can get started. All right. Good evening. My name is Sandra Firpo, and I'm an emergency services specialist with the San Mateo Consolidated Fire Department. It is my pleasure to be able to offer this class to you. It is called Get Ready. We offer it a few times a year. The way you heard about it, I'm guessing is the way most people tend to hear about it from different postings and things like that. It is always free. We have also converted it into Spanish language called Preparedness, and I'm looking forward to being able to offer that several times next year as well. So if you have any friends who prefer their information in Spanish, please let them know to look for that. And the Eventbrite site where you registered is pretty much where we list all of our available classes. We hope to also be offering first aid and CPR again soon. So those are the types of things that you can get from our Eventbrite site, and check that out from time to time. It'll keep you well informed on things that are going on. As you may know, about almost 2 years ago now, the fire departments from the city of Belmont, Foster City, and San Mateo merged together to become one agency. We are now known as San Mateo Consolidated Fire Department. So we serve all 3 cities. So it's a pleasure to have you here from those 3 cities. If you are from outside our cities, you are also welcome. So thank you again for joining us. So let's start with Get Ready. Reminder that this webinar is indeed being recorded. Please keep your microphones on mute. And actually the chat box is fine. You don't have to worry about the Q&A box, but at the bottom of your screen, you'll find your controls for Zoom, and you can look for this one, if I can get that to work, and then just pop that in, and Richard and Julianne will let me know that there are questions, and we will address them as we go through the program. So don't hesitate to ask questions. That's what this is all about. So we live in a very lovely place, and California throughout the state is spectacular with every different type of geology and geography and fauna and flora you can imagine. But sometimes that comes at a price, and things can change, unfortunately, quite quickly, as we have discovered. One thing that usually happens in a class like this is I'll ask at this time, how many of you have experienced a disaster? How many of you have been in a hurricane or tornado, flood, fire, that sort of thing? And usually I'll get maybe 1 or 2 people who might have had either a house fire or they've been in a hurricane or something like that. What makes this class unique is that every one of you has experienced a disaster now, because here we are in a pandemic, so across the world. Usually disasters will affect us. While every disaster is unique, disasters will affect us in 3 ways. Physically, so let's say an earthquake damages your house, that's physical, or you yourself are injured or get sick, so that's the physical part. Emotional, I don't care how tough you are, at some point, you're not gonna feel 100%, and it's gonna affect you emotionally, and that's normal. And it's gonna affect you financially. Look at the economy, look at the number of our neighbors who have lost jobs or businesses or are underemployed right now. So it hits us in all those 3 ways. So this certainly qualifies, this pandemic, as a disaster. So this is what makes this particular class unique, because all of you are experiencing this one. It's not what we normally think of as a disaster in terms of one big event and then the recovery that follows. This is sort of this long ongoing, but when we prepare for disasters, which is what we're discussing tonight, whether you're prepared, you're not preparing for one type. You're not preparing just for wildfires or just for earthquakes. When you prepare, as you'll see, you're preparing yourself for virtually anything, giving you that extra confidence, that extra flexibility to deal with whatever should come your way. So that's what we're hoping to achieve and help you achieve tonight. So let's talk about typical disasters. What do we normally think of when we think of a disaster? Earthquakes are the first one that comes to mind. Floods are actually the #1 type of disaster across the country. But these all certainly can affect us. What do we need to add to this slide? And by the way, this slide deck was created several years ago, so we will be pointing out the fact that it's a little outdated, and I'll be updating it certainly for next year. But we need to add pandemic, correct? Epidemics, anything like that has to be added. Technological disasters, obviously. And then there are just some people who want to make everybody else's life miserable, so that's why we have the terrorist-made disaster. But all of these things can happen. Here in California, we get all of these, or have the potential of getting all of these. We also wonder, what about hurricanes? Do we have to worry about those? No, we don't get hurricanes here. Thank goodness. What about tornadoes? Any concern about that? Yes, we can get tornadoes. They are rare, but this is actually one that happened here on the peninsula in 2005. Fortunately, it was a very small tornado. Nobody was hurt, but it did do some damage. Now, I'm not telling you all of this because I want to scare you. I'm telling you all of this because thinking about it is half the battle. The fact that you're here tonight, you're more prepared than half of your neighbors. It's just the way it is. People try to not think about stuff and think it's not going to happen to them. But just the fact of at least having it in your head, making a plan, puts you way ahead of the game and makes you therefore better able to recover. And we'll talk about how important recovery is and why that's important a little bit later. Obviously, again, these are older fires. 2017, the North Bay fires and the damage that was done. This is always interesting to me. This is the map of the fire that hit Paradise, or destroyed Paradise, I should say. This is just the second day of the fire. And if we were to take this map or this coverage on the left-hand side and put it over a map of our peninsula and our Bay Area on the right-hand side, that's how much territory was covered in just under 48 hours. So day 2, I should say. So a little bit over 24 hours, that's how fast that fire traveled. So we know now that this is not stuff that happens over there. This happens here. This can happen to us. We may have to evacuate quickly. So that's why you're here. And that's why we're encouraging building a culture of preparedness so that we can help each other be more efficient, effective, and save lives. All right. For those of you who may have been here for the Loma Prieta earthquake, I happened to live here at the time, and it was big and it was memorable. It was not the big one. This is a map comparing what the 06, the great quake of 1906, would have been like had we been built up the way we are now. So all this red would have been very intense shaking in 1906, in that earthquake. This is the way it was for us in 1989 for the Loma Prieta quake. So considerably milder than that 06 quake, certainly by all accounts in terms of historical accounts. All right, I wanted to share this quick video with you. The sound is not important. Tell me what you notice, and I will ask you to type into the chat box what you notice from this video. So what did you notice from this video as we get loaded back up here? Julianne, I can't see the chat box. Where are people saying anything?
Yes, so I didn't know you couldn't see the chat box. Yes, so there's people saying quick response to shelter to cover under the desk very quickly. Yeah, obviously they've been very well trained.
Yes, very well trained. And that's the key. The teacher didn't have to say anything. There was no special announcement. There was no alarm. Shaking started and the kids got under, duck, cover, and hold on, right? Why? Because they practiced. We as adults, you know, back in the days when we were all in offices, how many of us have had maybe a fire drill or even an earthquake drill? Did you get under the desk? Did you? No. Did you evacuate? No, you had a report to do. You had a phone call to make. You had a meeting to attend. You're too busy to deal with that. Yeah, I know. I know how to evacuate. But practice provides that muscle memory so you don't have to think about it. It happens and you can react. So when you have an opportunity, even in your home, you can say, okay, we're going to have a drill at, 5:15 this afternoon, and boom, let's pretend there's an earthquake. What do you do right now in the room that you're in right now? What would you do? That's the kind of thought process you want to start building in yourself and your family. The Great Shakeout, you might have heard of it. It happens every October. I left this slide here, even though the event already happened this year, but it does happen every October 15th, 10:15 at 10:15 in the morning. And it's a worldwide drill. It is the largest earthquake drill ever in the world. And we encourage you to participate. You can even create teams and post, your videos or your pictures on it. It can be quite fun. And there's a lot of good information on this website at all times. So please feel free to take that down and feel free to visit that. But again, practice does make a difference. All right. Now, as I told you, the San Mateo Consolidated Fire Department, right? The three cities of Belmont, Foster City, and San Mateo. We have 9 fire stations. And at any given time, we have about 40, 45 to 50 on duty, ready first line personnel to answer 911 calls and to come to the rescue when the time comes. But if we have an earthquake, for example, which is a regional situation, 40 people are not going to be able to cover 200,000 residents. This is, again, why we prepare, so that we are a little bit more self-sufficient. And in the past, people have talked about having a kit or being prepared for 3 days. I would recommend that you plan on a week. Not that it's going to be that long, but again, it gives you more comfort if you know you're prepared. And one thing we certainly want in a disaster to be able to lower the temperature and keep things calm. So even in your own home, the place where you are most comfortable, there may be hazards. There will be hazards. It's important to know what they are, and that way you can minimize those in advance. Gas lines, certainly, shelves and things that the collection of baseballs or whatever you have on the wall, is that going to come down? Do you have things over your bed or your bedroom? That certainly would be a problem. Consider the amount of movement that we saw from that earthquake in Alaska in the video. That kind of shaking is very realistic and to be expected. So things that are not bolted to the wall are going to come down, certainly, because they can block your path, your exits, all kinds of things, not to mention, of course, hurt you. All right. So let's talk about what to do before an earthquake. What do you think is the number one injury? And this is, again, you can type this into the chat box. Number one injury in an earthquake, should it happen at night? Any thoughts? Number one injury for people at night.
No, nothing in the chat yet.
No, everybody's hesitating.
There we go. Cut feet.
What is it?
Cut feet.
You win. You've taken this class before.
And somebody also says fall, and I think that's a good point when it's dark.
Absolutely. So it's dark, power might be out, earthquake, shaking happens, and then what do? You jump out of bed to go check on the kids or to go check out the house or whatever. And if things fell off of shelves or whatever, glass, vases, plates, you're going to have cut feet. So that is the number one injury, which is why this woman very smartly has right by her bed, if you see in the picture, a pair of shoes and a working flashlight under her bed. She's actually taken the extra step of putting them in a bag and tying that bag to the foot of her bed, because she's got hardwood floors apparently, and with all that shaking, things are going to move. They're not going to be precisely where you left them. It's also nice having it in a bag because if any debris were to fall, nothing will be falling inside her shoes. So now she can grab the shoes and the flashlight, she can slip them on, has the flashlight, and then go. So the human nature response of run and check on everything, the better response is hold back, make sure you yourself are safe, and then move. Because if you're hurt or injured, you are now causing more of a problem. You're adding to the problem rather than removing another potential situation. Okay, that little gummy stuff that we see here on the picture of the bottom is earthquake putty or museum putty. It's used in museums to protect the important displays, right? So if you have a lovely vase or a bowl or something that you have on display, even if you have pictures hanging on a wall, you can put this gummy stuff on the inside against the wall so it won't shake and move and possibly come off. So these are all little things that you can do to protect your valuables, but also to protect yourself physically from falling debris. Right? So we saw this in the video again, drop, cover, and hold on, right? Get underneath something, cover, you wanna cover your head and neck even if you're underneath something, and you wanna hold on. Why are you holding on? Because things move, and that cover that's on top of you may walk away. So you wanna make sure you have it with you, all right? Let's see. All right, after the earthquake, there's gonna be a mess, very likely. This is a kitchen. Obviously things fell from the cabinets and came out. Some really good advice that was given to me that I wanna pass on to you about when you're taking steps to prepare make your home a little bit more earthquake safe is the way you normally would baby proof or puppy proof a house. And you put those little clips on the lower drawers and doors of your kitchen so people, small hands can't open them. Consider putting those latches on the upper doors, upper cabinets, because then they won't necessarily open up and all the dishes and plates fly out. So that's one way of sort of adding some protection and minimizing the damage after. So not only are you safer, you won't lose all of your dishware. All right. Again, human nature, right? We have something happen and we want to see how far and wide the damage may be. Maybe we'll jump in the car and take a drive. Why is that not such a good idea? We're hoping, of course, that our first responders are responding to the big issues, whether it be a gas main break or fire or whatever, and they need the roadways as clear as possible. Remember, there's going to be a lot of debris. Power lines may have come down, trees may have fallen. So you don't want to get yourself caught into a bad situation. Things might still be in motion. So the best place for you to be is stay home, check your own home, and monitor what's happening via your radio, battery powered radio, and or if your television is still working, you can do that as well. And talk to your neighbors and make sure to check on each other, right? Check on your own home, check on your neighbors, and stay together. Don't travel and block the roads any more than they may already be. All right. So one good thing that you can do, today or certainly first thing tomorrow is walk your own home or place of work, any place that you tend to hang out more often. You want to be somewhat familiar with it and look at what some of the hazards might be and look at what is normal, because then when things change after an earthquake, for example, then you'll know that wasn't that way before. So that's something that's happened recently. All right, be familiar with all the exits and that sort of thing. And then after an incident, then you can do a good damage assessment and you can determine what may or may not need repair, whether your home is still livable and safe, which is what we would hope, and check for anything that may be causing fire or potential for fire, such as a gas leak and wires that may be out of the wall. All right. Important to take care of yourself. And we're seeing that with this pandemic right now. We're all exhausted. We're all tired. We're not sleeping as well as we normally do. I saw an article recently about how dentists are seeing more cracked teeth because we're all gnashing and tense in our jaws, right? So take care of yourself. Hydrate. Even with the mask on, we haven't been drinking water as much. But remember, water, we are 70% water, and our skin is our #1 protection, right? So we want to take care of it. Water, please. And let's make sure that we have preparation for our pets and for our children. It's okay to talk to our kids about potential disasters and the plans that we have. It reassures them if there are plans. So don't worry, we have a plan. This is what we're going to do. And remember that pets, you can't reason with pets. They get nervous and frightened. So make sure you have a way of transporting your pets if you needed to in an emergency. That means that they'd have to be comfortable in a crate or a carrier of some type. So, leave the carrier out, maybe feed them in the carrier, make the carrier part of their everyday life so that when it comes time to take them in the carrier, they are comfortable. It smells like something they are comfortable with. It will automatically lower the temperature and make them calmer too. All right, let's talk a little bit about 911. How many of you have called 911? I'm sure some of you have had that experience. One of the things that often I get told or that people find frustrating is that they'll call 911 and they'll get a lot of questions from the dispatcher. Please know that that doesn't mean they're not sending someone. So it's as soon as you make that call, they're already determining, okay, what does this person need? And let's get it rolling. So very important that the first thing that you say when you're calling is where you're calling from, a city, and what type of emergency you're reporting. Fire, a crime in progress, medical emergency. That way they know what to start sending in that direction. Now, if you're calling from a landline, I'm not calling, not VoIP, not anything. If you're calling from a landline, which very few of us have anymore, 90% of the time, your address from where you're calling will pop up on the dispatch screen. So they'll know where you are. However, most of us are using these, which are wonderful. But when you call 911 from a cell phone, it doesn't guarantee you that it's calling the closest dispatch to you. It may call the dispatch in Oakland or even Sacramento. Not a problem. That's fine. But that's why it's very important when you call 911 to tell them, hi, I'm calling from Foster City, and I have a person who looks like they're having a heart attack. So now we know city and what type of emergency, medical emergency, so they can start rolling an ambulance, paramedic to that location, right? Now, if you know for certain which city you're in, if you're in one of our 3 cities, and you know for certain that you're in Belmont, you can call, and you should have these numbers in your phone. You can call their non-emergency number. That still gets you to dispatch, but it gets you to dispatch in Belmont automatically. So it might save a couple of seconds, which I know in an emergency is a lot of time. Keep in mind, the average response time of our fire department to any 911 call is 4 minutes. And that's really good. But I know every second counts in an emergency. So if you are sure of which city you're in, you can call the non-emergency line and that will connect you directly to that city's dispatch. But don't hesitate. If you're not sure, if you can't remember, call 911 and then city and type of emergency, and that'll get it rolling. And then they're going to start asking all the questions, right? Why are they asking all these questions? Because as the trucks are rolling, they're sending them information. What if a person who passed out possibly passed out because of a chemical smell? It's important for the firefighters who are responding to know that. And when they're on the way, they can start pulling out gas masks. That way, the response is smoother. They have the equipment they need. They don't have to go back to the truck to get it. That's why all those questions. So don't hang up on the dispatcher after you've reported what you're reporting. Let him or her finish the call, let them hang up, and then you be out to wave the engine or fire truck to the location, okay? Every second counts, right, in an emergency. So these are things that you can do to speed up the response. All right, let's talk a little bit about extinguishing small fires. The definition of a small fire is, let me show you. A small fire would fit into a standard office garbage can. Okay, this is it. If it's bigger than this, you don't have the tools to fight it. That's what the fire department's for. You're calling 911 anyway. You're doing that first. But then, if you decide to take it on, then if you have a fire extinguisher handy, then you can take it on. Some things you want to remember. You want to have an exit, and the fire cannot be between you and the exit. So the door behind you, fire in front of you, that's fine. Give that a shot, because then you can back out and evacuate. Most important is to get everybody out and be safe. And call 911 so you have help rolling to your location. Let's talk a little bit about fire extinguishers. So fires are divided up into different categories, A, B, C, D, and K. But most of the fires that we have in our homes fall under the A, B, C category. A is your standard wood and, the couch, things like that burn. B are any liquids that burn, grease fires and that sort of thing in the kitchen. And C is electrical fires. Okay, so an ABC fire extinguisher is pretty standard. You can find these at Costco, you can find them online, but you're looking for an ABC fire extinguisher. All right. Where do you keep the fire extinguisher? A lot of people keep them under the sink, inside the cupboard. Well, most fires, 1 out of 5, happen in the kitchen. So you don't want to be having to go past the fire to get the fire extinguisher. So highly recommend that you consider having it mounted on the wall. You can get smaller ones mounted on the wall, where the exit is for the kitchen into the garage or someplace that you'll be able to get out of the house from. All right, so give that some thought. Something else is another great tool, smoke alarms. Now they have these 10-year smoke alarms. You don't have to change the battery every year. So they're really fantastic. You want to have one in every room, inside the room where anyone sleeps. So inside any rooms that people sleep in, certainly on every floor of the house. I don't know about you, but having it in the kitchen just makes it very difficult for me when I'm cooking. So then people end up taking the battery out, and then all you have is a nice piece of plastic on the wall, and it is not usable. So the tool is only as good as you make it. So make sure you put it just outside the kitchen, so it does catch if there's a kitchen fire, but it will not go off every single time toast is being made or something like that. So these are all tools that make a huge difference. They're not terribly expensive, and they're very accessible to you. All right. Here's what we were talking about a little earlier about having a plan. Make a plan. It doesn't have to be anything complicated. It doesn't have to be, in legalese. Just something that everyone knows about. So the whole family has to discuss it around the kitchen counter or dinner table, whatever works for you, and talk about that. Let's talk about escape and evacuation routes. First of all, let's say there was a fire in your home. We talk a lot about having 2 ways out. That is not just 2 ways out of your home. it's 2 ways out of every room you're in. Okay, so usually one way is the door, and often the second way is the window. Sometimes younger kids think they can't go out the window because mom and dad say, don't go out the window. And so even in an emergency, they don't want to disobey mom and dad. So you have to give them permission to understand that in an emergency, you may have to go out the window, okay? You may want to practice that. It's up to you, but I think that's a great idea. So you want to have a meeting place, because if you picture a fire in the house, right? Smoke, the fire, smoke alarms are going, people are yelling, the fire trucks are coming and the alarms are going. It's going to be loud, it's going to be scary, it's going to be confusing, and chances are it'll be dark. So some people are going out the front door, maybe the side door, maybe the window up on the second floor. They're going to end up at different points around the house. How do you know everyone got out? That's why you have a meeting place. And you all know what that meeting place is, and you practice getting out and going to the meeting place. Somewhere outside, a little bit away from the house, but close enough so that when the fire trucks do arrive, you can tell the fire crews, we're all here, everybody got out, or everybody got out except for one person who's probably in his bedroom, right? So now they have a goal. They know exactly where they're going and exactly who they're looking for. Or they know that everybody got out, and that's good, and they can focus on fighting the fire. So again, information is crucial, and tools like this and having a meeting place are very important. Planning for your pets and planning for disabled or people with mobility issues. It takes longer to evacuate if you have mobility issues. That's just a reality. So plan accordingly. And remember, the dynamics in your family might change. What if someone's having surgery next week? That person is recovering, and they're going to be not quite as mobile or as agile as they usually are, right? They may be on crutches or they may be in a wheelchair. So as any dynamics that change, that's going to impact how you're going to evacuate, how you're going to get into a car, that sort of thing. And then the out-of-state contact, probably my favorite tip for everyone, because one thing that certainly goes down during an emergency and any disaster is communications. Everyone's going to be jumping onto the cell phone, and cell phone towers might have come down in the earthquake or burned up in the fire. Also, everyone's going to be calling someone locally in an emergency. So the bandwidth is going to go down to nothing. So you're going to have a great deal of difficulty, if at all, being able to get through on your phone. Couple of things. Texting takes less bandwidth than a phone call, than a voice call. So no emojis, nothing like that, just straightforward, quick text. Hey, had an earthquake, we're safe staying home, or we're safe going to Aunt Brenda's house. But if you have an out-of-state contact that everyone in the family knows, an out-of-state call, a long-distance call, has a better chance of actually getting through. Instead of calling locally, you're calling out of state. So for example, my brother lives in Arizona. My entire family knows to call him. And while it's not direct information, you're getting it secondhand, that person can tell you, oh yeah, I heard from your husband and I heard from your daughter and they're doing this or that, or they're fine, or whatever the case may be. So now I'm getting information. I'll know fairly soon the status of everyone in my family. And again, lower the temperature. I can now focus on what I need to do or what is happening in front of me instead of worrying about family. So that's another way of getting information to your family. We'll talk about a couple of other things. It's highly recommended that you write this emergency plan down, but I think the most important thing is, of course, practice. And we talked about 2 ways in and out of your home, right? Here's an example of a map describing evacuating your home, 2 ways out of each room, and then a meeting place, right? If you live in an apartment complex, same idea. Where's the meeting place? If you live in an apartment complex or in your business situation, you might have preset evacuation routes and preset evacuation meeting places, which is important because someone's in charge of taking roll at the meeting place. So make sure you know where those are if your HOA has something already established, and certainly in your office place. All right, so keep in mind, cell towers and phone lines will be overloaded. It's going to be very hard to get a direct call through, but some other ways that you can reassure or communicate with your loved ones. What if you take your outgoing voicemail message and change it and simply say, hey, it's Sandra, we just had an earthquake. I'm safe, I'm staying at work. Now, whomever calls might get my voicemail. I didn't give out any personal information, but they heard me, they know I'm fine, and they know what my plans are, right? You can change your status on your social media. Everybody's going on, Facebook and checking Twitter or whatever. Change your status from single to safe, right? Very simple. And let people know that you're okay. Locate payphones, obviously I have to update this, but carrying change is also important. Why change? By change, we mean cash, small bills, all right? We'll talk a little bit about that. Back in the day of payphones, that's why we're carrying change, but we'll talk about small bills in just a bit, all right? So we've covered evacuating your home. You may have to evacuate your whole area, right? So, you leave your town, you leave your house every day. Maybe you're going to the store, you have errands, or you're going to schools, or you're going to work. You're accustomed to a particular route. But what if that route were not available? What if a tree fell in the road? What if the roadway broke or a sinkhole developed? Do you have a second way out of your neighborhood? So take a different route from time to time, or come home a different way. And just get used to taking different ways in and out of your neighborhood. You should be able to have a couple, okay? All right, here says focus on children. I would say focus on everyone. This preparation reduces stress, lower the temperature. What is the biggest concern you have right after an incident happens? You're worried about your loved ones. Well, if you can find out in a relatively short period of time that they're okay or where they are, then that lowers the temperature. You can focus more clearly. That's important, okay? And talk about it. Talk about it with the kids, talk about it amongst yourselves. We are, a lot of people are talking on Zoom now for the holidays or whatever. Make that part of the conversation. It shouldn't be something scary. It's realistic. And you can set an out-of-state contact all together and determine who that's going to be. Make sure it's someone who tends to answer their phone and, go from there. And then assemble go bags. What's a go bag? Just as it says, it's a bag that you can grab and go, and that will have enough stuff in it to be light enough to carry, but also usable enough for you to be comfortable for a few days. Now there are some fantastic kits on the market. A backpack for 2 people for 3 days, and it's got food and water and first aids. They're great. These are fantastic things. But if you buy one of those and throw it in the closet, you can't say, all right, I'm prepared, because you have no idea what's in there or how to use it. So I would highly recommend, if you're going to buy a pre-made kit, terrific, but take it and everything is all packaged up, and open it all up. Unpackage everything so it's usable and grabbable right away, right? You don't have to open up the food, obviously, but unpackage, unwrap the first aid kit and any tools that are in there, whatever. But then customize it to you. Only you know what's important to you. Is there a dietary need in your family, someone who's allergic to things? Well, if you go to a shelter or an evacuation center, they're not going to have a lot of food options. They're going to have what they're able to get in a very short period of time under very dire circumstances. So have some bars in your bag that are things that you can eat for the first couple of days. Do you take any daily medications? You need to have some of that in your bag. I wear prescription eyeglasses. So when I change out my glasses to a different prescription, I'll take my old glasses, put them in a case, and put them into my go bag, right? And so the go bag is not your kit. You're not taking all your water and everything in it. You want to try and just be comfortable for a few days. So worst case scenario, everybody just grabs their go bag and runs. They can be comfortable with a change of clothes and some things. And if you have children, you want some toys or something fun in there that they can enjoy. Heck, I put, a book in there or a magazine that I know I can read, something to keep you comfortable. All right. Okay. So I want to take, first of all, are there any questions? And don't hesitate. This
Not
is what
at the moment, but
not at
maybe
the moment. Very good.
are shy.
Thank you. No. All right. What we're going to do is we're going to take a quick 3-minute break. Everybody get up and stretch, get some water. If you have to run to the bathroom, grab a snack. 3 minutes and we'll be right back. And then we're going to show you some kind of fun stuff. We're going to talk to Richard and Julianne. So everybody, 3 minutes from now, I'm keeping myself honest. Take a break, stretch. Okay, about 10 seconds, folks. So let's start getting back and comfortable. And remember, if you have any questions, don't hesitate. Oh, there goes our alarm. Don't hesitate to ask any questions you have on the chat box. So I wanted to introduce you to Julianne and Richard, who are two of our CERT members. CERT is Community Emergency Response Team. The CERT program is a free program that we offer through the San Mateo Consolidated Fire Department. It's an 8-week course of study on preparation, fire suppression, light search and rescue, disaster first aid, and teamwork in your neighborhood and community to help your community as well as yourselves in the event of a disaster. So Julianne and Richard have been members with us for a couple of years now. And we're going to talk a little bit about what they might have in either their CERT bag or their go bag, whichever they would like to share with us. And so you can see, and again, this is everybody is going to be a little bit different. So let's see what they might have in their bag.
Thanks, Sandra. So maybe I start with answering a question that just popped up in the chat, which is the basic introduction to what we're going to talk about. Is a go bag the same as a pre-made kit? And I think the answer to that is a bit of yes and no. You can start with a pre-made kit, but you should definitely customize that, as Sandra has already mentioned. And as Sandra mentioned, there are different types of bags as we as CERT members keep. So we have our CERT backpacks that we maybe can talk about a bit later, but I think it's more important to really talk about what we call a go bag. And a go bag is really something that each of us has that we can grab if we need to leave the house in an emergency. So we wanted to give you some examples of what we have in our go bags. But before we do that, I wanted to mention something else. We actually have more than one go bag. We have one at home, but we have a lot of things in our cars. And I mean, everybody, maybe not at the moment as much, but everybody lives very much in their car in California, goes with it everywhere. So we each have a car. We have in each of these cars, we have a set of clothes for both of us. I have a pair of hiking shoes in both cars because when I still used to work at work, I would wear fancy shoes in which I would certainly not be able to walk home. We have flashlights in the cars and other things like that. So when we talk about our go bag that we have here at home to go, I encourage everybody to think about where do you go with your car? And if the emergency happens while you're out there, what do you have in your car to maybe make you feel a little bit more comfortable while you are on the way? So long introduction. So what goes in a go bag? And I'll maybe start, and Richard can join me. So we're not going to show you our set of clothes. So a set of clothes is obviously a good thing to have, a spare set of clothes in there to take with you. Some food, as Sandra has mentioned, some cereal bars or something else. I personally am really obsessed with first aid kits. I usually buy some, I have bought this one and I've bought some for some family members. Like Sandra says, I've opened them. I've taken a lot of stuff out. I've put even more stuff in. I usually buy them in a bag that is bigger than what comes with it because you want to put in something that you may need. You may want to have some special medication in there or something. So it's really up to you, but familiarize yourself with what is in there and if it is really something that meets your needs that you think you need in an emergency. Two other things we have in go bags is a flashlight. This is a small one from the backpack. We also have spare batteries in there because batteries go empty very, very quickly. And I, having grown up in Europe, that may be a specific thing, I always have a pocket knife everywhere. A pocket knife is very useful for many, many things. You want to add a few things, maybe?
Sure. So when you're to extend with the having more than one go bag and having a go bag at work, I work in Campbell. I live in San Mateo. My go bag at work is what I felt that I needed to be able to walk home from Campbell. Because I couldn't guarantee that my electric car would still have a charge or I would be able to find a place to charge it. So I was just going to abandon it there and walk home. So where your go bag is and which go bag you're talking about will determine what's in that go bag. Because I work a lot with high tech, a lot of people nowadays link their phones. They spend a lot of time on their phones. We have power bricks. So this is a 10,000 milliamp hour, which is sufficient to charge my iPhone 4 times. You're not going to find power probably, or if you do, you're going to be very lucky. So having a spare power brick. Nowadays, you can actually get solar panels that are easily portable, which will be sufficient to keep your phone charged, or your pager if you still happen to have one of those. So It comes back to when you're talking about what goes into your go bag, well, what makes you comfortable? And if you're comfortable playing games on your phones, then if your phone's going to go dry, you're going to have problems. So keep an idea of how you're going to recharge your phone. So keeping radio. Oh yeah. Also, we're both ham radio operators, and so we have HTs, handy talkies, what the general public call a walkie-talkie. We have these. We have them spread out all over the house. We have them in our cars. We have them at work. Generally, we have a radio probably within 15 feet of us at any given point, simply because we're weird that way. And this just gives us the ability to phone home in a manner that does not require a cell phone tower to still be operational. We also have spare batteries for the radios and longer antennas to get better range and stuff like that.
Shall I show some other things maybe? Yeah. I know Sandra wants to continue, but maybe a few more things. So I'm always worried that my cell phone is lost, because you don't know what kind of emergency it is. So we actually have a stack of papers in our go bags, which has some copies of documents that we think are important for us, but it especially has our phone numbers from us and the closest family. In the past, I knew phone numbers from everybody, but now it's in the cell phone. I would not remember any of the phone numbers. So we have those in our go bags. So just so that we have those in case something happens with the phone. And Sandra already mentioned spare glasses. I am nearly blind without my glasses, so I have spare glasses in multiple places. Car, go bag. Think about what medications you need. So that's obviously very individual, what you want to put in there. I always have Kleenex in them. And we also do have a hard drive in there, which has some photos that we really wouldn't want to lose if our house burned down. I think that was some of the things we wanted to mention. There are many more things in there, but I thought that would be, as an example, good enough. Sandra, I don't know if you want us to talk about cert bags too, or is this sufficient?
No, that was perfect. Exactly what I was looking just to see. And we're not recommending any particular brand of things, but it's just every person's go bag is going to be unique, because only you know what works best for you. And like Richard and Julianne both indicated, low tech sometimes is really a great backup, right? You're not going to remember all the phone numbers. You're not going to have everything at your fingertips. You don't want to use or overuse your phone if your battery life is limited. And so having maybe hard copies of a couple of local maps might be good, as well as those phone numbers. But you can all, and photos, for example, like they have on the hard drive. But remember, you can, I love this tip. This was something that was told to me several years ago, and I use this in all of my classes. Take photos of documents, your insurance forms, your driver's licenses, all those things, and put them onto a thumb drive, flash drive, right? Very, very small, very easy to carry. Label it well and put it in a safe place away from your home. So either a safe deposit box in a bank, or at a parent's home, or somewhere, make sure you know where it goes, so it is accessible. So all that information, if your house were, we don't want to think about it, but if your house were to burn and you were to lose all of that, you have a backup. And that's what that is. And that's, a really great thing. So you can take photos, erase them from your phone after you've put them up onto a flash drive, and keep that in a safe place away from your home, so you have a backup of everything. So something I wanted to, so if you have it on speaker view, by the way, if on your screen, on your Zoom there, you should see me in full screen, and I'm going to move the camera. So you may want to just close your eyes so you don't get a seasick feeling, because we're going to talk about your gas, the natural gas, and turning it off, and under what circumstances. So under what circumstances would you shut off the gas to your home, right? How do you know you have a potential gas leak? Well, we all carry a particular tool that's always very handy that will help us determine whether or not we should be concerned about a gas leak, and that is right here, your nose. Natural gas does not have a natural smell. They add that smell. Your utility company throughout the country and throughout the world adds a particular smell that we all now recognize as gas. So if you smell gas, it doesn't mean automatically to shut off your gas, but it does mean to investigate. And if you determine there is a gas leak because you see it, smell it, hear it, then you should turn off the gas to your home. And so it's important to have an idea as to how to do that. And that's one of the things that you will do when you do your walk around your home. So I'm going to move the camera and show you a prop, an example of what a gas main and gas meter may look like, and where to locate the valve that you would be shutting off to your home. Okay. Important to have a tool. A lot of people would have a wrench, which is fine. These are both tools that are available online at any hardware store. Just ask for a gas shut-off tool. These are obviously two sizes. This one can do a few other things as well. This one runs about $8 and this one about $4. Okay, I'm going to move the camera now, so don't get seasick on me. Julianne and Richard, can you tell me if this is pointing in the right direction?
Yes.
Okay. So this here is what your gas main will look. You'll recognize this. Now I'm going to use my own home as an example. This is inside my garage. And the pipes go outside the home and down into the ground. So actually the valve that I'm looking for is this one here, is located outside of my house, while this is inside of my house. Okay.
Sandra, you didn't point at the valve when you said this is the valve we're looking for. So that's
There.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
This is the valve we're looking for. So this is the pipe that would go into the ground if this were a real setup. Okay, so that's what you're looking for. Now notice the valve is in line with the pipe. Okay, that means that it's on and the gas is flowing because it's in line with the pipe. Sometimes a valve might be here with a pipe going horizontally, right? And so then the valve would be heading in this same direction as the pipe, meaning that the gas is flowing. All right, now our point is if we're going to shut it off, we want to turn this just a quarter of a turn so that it's crossing the pipe. Imagine it blocking the gas. That's what we're going to do. So let me try to move this camera and set it up in such a way. Julianne, can you see the?
Yes, that's good.
There we go, okay. So I'm gonna play here. It's got two sizes. So this one obviously doesn't work here. This one works here, right? So we're gonna turn this so it crosses the pipe. And you're gonna have to put some force into it, but you're only turning it a quarter of a turn. So now, if you can see, this valve is crossing the pipe, so the gas is shut off. So when you find it at home, it will have been pointing up and down or in line with the pipe. And to shut it off, you do this. Now, under no circumstances do you practice this at home, which is why we have a prop to practice it on. Usually if we have this class, I'm in the same classroom as you are, and you get an opportunity to practice it. Hopefully we can do that in the future. But right now, locate your gas main, locate the valve, but do not practice shutting it off. The reason is because in order to turn it back on, and by the way, I'm going to move the camera again, so everybody hang on. To turn it back on, it has to be done by a professional from the utility company, in this case, PG&E. So please do not turn off your gas unless you are certain that you suspect a gas leak. And you would contact, in this area, PG&E to let them know that you turned off the gas because you suspect a gas leak. Does that make sense? Hold on. Fine tuning the camera here. There, I'm back. All right. Did that make sense? And does anyone have any questions?
There were questions about what else would go in go bags. And Sandra, I don't know if you have a list somewhere with suggestions. I have seen something that we could maybe send out or something, or post somewhere, or can point people to.
Absolutely. And because you're in this class, you are going to get that. So later on in the program, there will be a slide with some suggested items. Remember, there's a couple of different things that we talk about. Earthquake kit or preparedness kit, disaster kit. That's something large that you probably have at home that can have water in it and food items for several days, and a big first aid kit and extra clothing, whatever. It'll be stuff you have at home. And for the most part, especially when it comes to things like a first aid kit, you have most of this stuff at home already. Okay, but it's not all together in one place. So that's what we're trying to do. To make it easy, if you had to leave right away, that's what the go bag is for. And as Juliana Richards said, having multiple bags, things in multiple places where you tend to hang out, in our cars are certainly one of those. So I can comfortably live for 3 days out of my car if I had to.
Yeah.
I have a change of clothes, I have some food, I have some water, I have flashlights, and I have, stuff. So, so that's all great. My husband complains that he can't get anything in my trunk, but that's all right. I feel good about it.
Maybe I can just add, it's really also about what you may need for comfort. So my most important item I actually forgot to mention, Twinings Earl Grey tea bags, because I cannot survive a day without a good cup of tea.
There you go. So yes,
you all may have something like that. I know Sandra has something like that she's shared with other people. So everybody has something particular that makes them feel a little better for a short time.
Exactly. And if it's that cup of tea or a chocolate bar, chocolate would melt, by the way. I don't recommend it, but I understand the need. For me, I love wet wipes. This was before the pandemic. I always like to have wet wipes, so I carry those around. But the one thing that's not on any of these lists, masks and hand sanitizer, because this is a new thing, right? So what's recommended now is have masks in each of your go bags, extra masks, and have enough for your family. Because if I only grab my go bag, and I have children or something, I want to have a few extra masks for them as well. So extra masks and hand sanitizer definitely go in your go bag. Your kit is something big at home. That's a separate item. Your water storage, a separate item. We'll talk about water shortly. And your go bags are small, very portable, but something that's going to make you comfortable for a few days. Okay, so think about what makes you comfortable. What if it's Earl Grey tea? And I'm right there with you, Julianne. Absolutely adding that to my go bag tonight. So thank you for that. So biggest thing to remember from what we just discussed with the gas is you do not turn it on. There's a famous story. An earthquake happened during the day back when everybody was working in offices and not working remotely. And there was a gentleman who was home, and all of his neighbors were at work. There was an earthquake, and he had one of the shut-off tools, and he figured he'd be a good neighbor, and he'd shut off the gas for all of his neighbors, and automatically did that. And they ended up having to wait a week because turning the gas back on was not a priority in an emergency. So they had to wait for PG&E to have the time to come back and turn everybody's gas on. So he was not the most popular person, but we all learned a lesson from that. So you don't turn the gas off automatically, but certainly when it's necessary, do so. What some people do is they keep the tool hanging They attach it in some way to the gas main, because remember how all that shaking happens? The tools aren't going to be precisely where you left them. So having it attached to the gas main in some way, clipped on there, if you feel safe doing that, then that's a great way of having it on hand should you need to turn off the gas. All right. Now, let's talk about PSPS. We probably have all heard about this now, the Public Safety Power Shutoff. This is something that was a lesson learned from the terrible wildfires of 2017 and 2018. And the utility companies across California, all the utilities companies, all decided on this as a way of action if the weather is a perfect situation of high winds, dry fuel, dry grasses, low humidity. If they meet all those criteria, they are going to shut off the power proactively in advance of the windstorm, if you will, to prevent hot equipment from sparking and causing a wildfire. Whether or not you agree with this particular policy is not the issue. The issue is that it is in place right now, and that's the way it works right now. So if PG&E in our area calls for a PSPS alert, they will alert that area that's going to have a power outage, power shutoff, 48 hours and 24 hours in advance. If it were an earthquake or an accident, power outages will still happen and not give us any warning. So at least you have a little bit of warning. So having a backup plan for power, you know, things that run on electricity. And by the way, this website is one that all the utility companies in California have created to help you with preparing for these types of power outages. But you prepare pretty much the way you prepare for any power outage, which may come without warning. So refrigerator, opening and closing the fridge will lower the temperature in your fridge and make your food go bad more quickly. So keep the fridge closed. Turn off and unplug items that you're not using, because when the power comes back, it may surge and that can cause a problem with some of your equipment. So, you know, unplug some larger appliances and computers. Again, don't drive around. You're just clogging up the roadways for emergency personnel. And please use battery operated flashlights. And the biggie, oh my gosh, if you have a garage door opener, an electric garage door opener, it's not going to work during a power outage. So know how to open your garage door manually. Everybody's is different. Again, you may want to practice it. It may be too heavy for you to open on your own. That's good to know, because you may have to enlist the help of a neighbor or a friend. So keep that in mind, because should you need your car in an emergency, should you need to evacuate and the power is out, you need to be able to open up your garage door. So please look into manually opening your garage door. And like I said, chances are you already have half the stuff you need for any disaster kit, go bag, first aid kit. You probably have, it's just not all together. And if you go camping at all, your camping stuff, I have a camping box. And pretty much my plan is if I have to evacuate, I'm throwing the camping box in the back of my car. And then with the stuff that I have in my car, I can go. So that's what I want to get to. And again, it isn't like you have to spend a whole weekend and buy all kinds of new stuff. Chances are you have most of what you need already. It just needs to be organized in a way that you can use it. All right, let's talk about some of the things that run on electricity. My favorite is the one at the top, traffic lights. Another reason why we don't want to be driving around. When the power is out, the traffic lights will also be out. And we all know how everybody tends to drive when the traffic lights aren't running. So please don't drive around. But if you have medical devices that run on electricity or battery that has to be charged, please plan ahead, make a plan. So you may be out of power for more than 8 hours, which means you may have to go somewhere else to charge your battery and then come back home. You have to make that plan in advance. So think about that. When they do a PSPS, they try to do it in a very tight area. So it may be half of a city, or, you know, a certain diameter of a section of the city, which means if you have family in the next city down, they may still have power. So that could be, you can be each other's backup plan. but think about that, please. All right. So I talked a bit about smoke detectors and where to put them. CO alarms, carbon monoxide alarms, also fantastically helpful. And again, what are all the common denominators here? There are a lot of tools out there, great tools for you to use. That gives you more flexibility. A smoke alarm is not going to save you from the fire, but it'll alert you and give you extra time to get out. That's what we're talking about here. The same with a carbon monoxide alarm, which are terrific and can be, again, an excellent tool. The more information you have, the better you can make a decision that's the best one for you and your family. All right. Getting to know your community resources, getting to know your neighbors. I'm not asking you to be a busybody or anything, but it's nice to at least be familiar with your neighbors. One thing that we in our society have stopped being quite as familiar with our neighbors as maybe our parents and grandparents used to be. But at least, wave, their routine. Do they work during the day, or maybe they work nights? Or because if you need help, or if you need to help them because somebody may have mobility issues, or maybe the neighbor just had surgery, that they're going to need a little extra hand in case of an emergency. So work with each other, develop a little network of people that you can count on. If you need help opening your garage door, that you can call on your neighbor to do that, and vice versa, right? Maybe you have a neighbor who's, a painter or has a lot of tools, or somebody who's an EMT or a nurse. And so that type of information, again, good resource for you. Consider CERT, the Community Emergency Response Team. So we talked to Richard and Julianne, they're CERT members. CERT is available in almost every city and area throughout the country. It is a national program. The curriculum is put together by FEMA, and we teach it here for free to our residents. We've just developed a hybrid model because of the pandemic, and we plan to offer it again, hopefully in February. It's not locked in, but I'm almost there. So you'll be taking online portion, and then you do a hands-on where you get to practice everything that you learned, including firing off a fire extinguisher and that sort of thing. And then, of course, the Humane Society. We are very fortunate in this area with the Peninsula Humane Society that has a great plan for shelters for pets, because not all shelters will take pets in an emergency. So you want your pet to be safe. So think about either looking into local hotels or hotels slightly out of the area that do accept pets. So in case of emergency, if that's your option, you will be able to take your pet with you. But also, you may want to look into what the plans are with the Peninsula Humane Society. They have a terrific emergency team that sets up a shelter for pets, and you'll want to know where that shelter may be. There's no one place where it's going to be. Again, that's why you need your radio so you can get information. Here's the CERT, a couple of pictures from our CERT group. So very happy CERT members here. And these are neighbors, folks just like yourselves who just took the class. It's not limited to anybody. The 18 is the youngest, although we take them at 16 with parental permission. But don't feel you're too young or too old. CERT is for everyone. All right. So a little bit about sheltering. We've heard the term shelter in place ad nauseum. So we're familiar with what it means. It does mean staying indoors, because whatever's outside is the risk. So whether it be a chemical leak, a bad person running around the neighborhood, whatever the case may be, you may be asked to shelter in place. So wherever you are, stay indoors, lock the doors, close the windows, that sort of thing. Sheltering for an extended stay. So in the pandemic situation, right? What happened is there was a shelter in place called, and people ran to the stores, and there was panic buying toilet paper. But if you're already prepared, you don't have to panic. You don't have to run and join the crowd, which, and expose yourself to other people unnecessarily, right? So plan on a week to 2 weeks, have some emergency supplies, have some non-perishable items, things that don't need to be refrigerated, that your family likes, and be prepared to hang out. And then there's the typical shelter we think of after a disaster with all the cots and everything, we're trying not to have to set those up. And we've been fortunate in one sense when we've had the wildfires and we've had to set up for evacuations, where since the hotels are not being utilized right now, we were able to use hotels during the pandemic for people to not have to congregate in one shelter. But if the case does come up, we would have to really spread everybody out considerably and open multiple shelters to make that happen within a pandemic, the disaster within a disaster. So obviously, your best and most comfortable option is staying home, which is why it's important to get to know your home, your apartment, wherever it is, and then be able to know if things shift and move, whether the home is safe or not. And even if you couldn't be in the home because some part of the home had collapsed or something had happened or come off the foundation, if you can't stay in the home, maybe you can camp out in one of your your backyard or something, right, with your camping equipment. So at least you're still home and you're much more comfortable there than you would be at a shelter. However, if you had to leave and go to a shelter, by all means do so. And you're more prepared with a go bag, you'd be much more comfortable. All right. There are a number of shelter sites throughout our cities that are pre-identified, but I can't tell you which one is going to be open because it all depends on where the disaster happens. If there's a big, water main break or a levee break, then it'll affect a particular neighborhood. So we'll open a shelter in another neighborhood so that those people will be able to at least get comfortable for a while until things are fixed wherever they may live. Okay. All right. So we talked a bit about this already, camping in your backyard and using your home as much as possible, as much as is safely possible. All right. Pets may not be admitted to a shelter. What can you take with you to a shelter? So obviously you have your go bag, and in your go bag, you'd have things that you're comfortable with. But please only bring food that is commercially packaged. We talked about the cereal bars or the protein bars or whatever it is that you would like, have that in your go bag. Glass containers, bad idea. No glass containers should be in your go bag or go kit. And alcoholic beverages are not allowed in shelters, so please don't bring those. And put something fun in your bag. Books, games, whatever it is that you like. Here are some more options in terms of tools and getting information. So here we have the local community channel, channel 27. If your television is still working, channel 27 might post some information. And SMC Alert. I cannot recommend this more highly because it is another great tool, another great resource of information from reliable sources. The folks who post on SMC Alerts, which is something you can get on your phone, will be the county and law enforcement and fire agencies who get information in a very timely manner and can give you where to avoid as well as where to go if there's a shelter or an evacuation center opened. All right, and we'll talk a little bit about SMC Alert and all of you via email, by the way. Usually if in this class, if we were having this class in person, I would have given all of you a folder with some great information and some great forms for you to take a look at and see what you'd like to use. I am going to email that packet to you in the next week, and you'll be able to print out anything that you like from those. And one of them is how to enroll for SMC Alert, but it's very simple to do, and it's something that you can do tonight. There are 2 AM radio stations. Belmont currently doesn't have one, but I believe they're working on one. So if in an emergency, we could post some information on that AM radio station. And there shouldn't be much of anything on it now because we're not having one, but in an emergency, we could post something there. So again, another resource for you. Here's the SMC Alert resource information. It's smcalert.info. It's very easy to do. This is what the website looked like anyway some time ago. So keep an eye out for that. Again, very easy to register for, and it'll give you some useful information. I'm holding it there so you can write that down if you need to. SMC Alert. Every county has an alert system. It's called something different, but it's usually called, SF Alert or Alameda Alert, I think is what they call theirs. Every county has one. So for example, I used to work in San Francisco County, but live in San Mateo County. So I had both alerts on my phone. If you have a youngster in college, for example, and they're on the campus, every campus usually has an alert system as well. So you can sign up for your child's alert system on their college campus. That way you're also alerted if something should come up on the campus. So this is all great information and very helpful. And again, the information is given to you. What you do with it is completely up to you. But having the information is an added tool, gives you more flexibility to make timely decisions for your family. This is 2 examples of an SMC alert. Remember, they come quickly, so they may not be the most beautiful, fancy written. They may have typos, but they're given very quickly. They usually will have some indication as to who sent them. That doesn't say it here, but it does indicate that we're talking about San Mateo County. So this was a storm preparation, and this was a high wind warning. And this is just an example of what it would look like. This one here has links, so you can then link to get additional information. All right, so I talked a little bit about taking photos of your vital records, insurance forms, birth certificates, death certificates, credit cards, IDs, passports, and putting this onto a thumb drive and putting it somewhere safe, such as a safe deposit box. So it is accessible, but away from your home. So if you lose your home, you have another source of information. Why does this matter? When we think of disasters, again, usually a disaster is an incident that happens, one big incident, say a wildfire or an earthquake, and then we're dealing with the aftermath after that. If it's destructive and you lose a lot of your vital records, the process of recovery, which is the most important process, right? Getting the community built back up, getting the schools reopened, getting the banks open, getting the stores open, all that takes a lot of work. But also putting your life back together takes a lot of work. And unfortunately, it's a lot of paperwork. But how much easier will it be if you have your bank account numbers, your insurance company contact information, your ID to prove that you actually live in this area? Many times when they let people in to go see what's left, or if they can try and recover some items from their home, you have to be able to prove that you are from that area. So you may have had to evacuate, you may have lost everything or left everything at the house, right? So now you have another resource. You can go and get it at mom's house or the bank or someplace, and you have everything on that thumb drive, and you have all your information and all the proof you need. So think about that as a backup. It's huge temperature lower, right? Huge calming influence if you have a resource with all your stuff. You have to protect it, has to be safe. You have to think about this, but simple to do, very easy to put on a very small thumb drive and easy to store somewhere else that's safe, okay? All right, so like I said, you can purchase a first aid kit or something that's pre-made. Here's, something we had in the office. So that's great, but open it up, make sure you're familiar with what's inside, and customize it to anything that you may need, whether it be medications or food stuff or things that make you comfortable. Oh, Ray-T. Being prepared to be self-sufficient for at least a week is realistic, and that includes water. We're going to talk a little bit about water being very important. Okay, water is very heavy. It's not going to be something that you're going to be carrying around in your go bag a lot, but you want to have a storage. You want to have some storage of water in your home, and maybe your workplace has it as well, because often in most disaster situations, whether it be flooding or fire, I've always heard of a boiled water notice, at least for 24 hours, where the water there, until they can confirm that the water source has not been contaminated in some way. So you need to have a source of water other than the tap. Okay, some of you are asking for a list of supplies. You're going to get this, by the way, in the packet that I'm going to send you. But if there's anything that jumps out at you, please write it down. So let's talk a little bit about water. Now here, the recommendation, you've heard this before, 1 gallon of water per person per day. Now, normally I try to bring a gallon of water with me, but I need you now to imagine the gallon of water, right? A gallon of water that you buy at the store, great, 1 gallon. Is that enough for you for a day? You make your coffee, you wash your face, you brush your teeth, hopefully you're drinking water, you're making lunch, you're making soup, whatever, is a gallon of water enough for you for a day? Only you can answer that question. But if you feel that you need more, then it's up to you to store more per person per day. And we're talking a week. All right. So please give that some thought. Talking about now cash and change. Let's imagine that same gallon of water. Let's say it's a few days into the incident and maybe you're running a little low and you'd like to maybe buy some water and it's hard to come across now at this point. I'm a nice person. I happen to have some extra water. I'm happy to sell you this gallon of water and I'll be nice and I'll sell it to you for $2. Okay, here you go, $2. All you have is a 20. I'm not that nice. I'm not giving you my change. So you have now paid $20 for a gallon of water that you could have gotten for $2. That's why. Again, flexibility, options, tools. You want to give yourself as many options as possible. So put some cash, yes, in your go bag. Not, you don't want to have a whole lot, but you want to have cash in small bills, accessible. Remember, the ATMs are not going to be working if the power's out. So you're not going to be able to get cash easily. Banks may not be open. Stores, power's out. They can't use the credit card machine anyway, right? So give yourself some options. Cash, and again, accessible, meaning you don't have to carry a ton of cash on you, but you have to be able to get to someone's house or somewhere where you can get that extra stash of cash, okay? So everybody asked me, how much should I carry? That's, again, up to you. But I wouldn't put a whole lot in my go bag. I'd have some. And then have a place where you can get small bills somewhere else. Again, accessible. You don't need to have it on you. All right, so now let's go beyond. These are things that you might have at home in your kit. But you might even have, in terms of the heavy gloves or the sturdy shoes or the heavy gloves, that might be something that I'd have in my go bag in case. But you're going to need to be, cleaning things if you're, trying to get things out of the way after an earthquake, for example, and you're picking up broken glass and broken things. You want to make sure you have good shoes on and heavy gloves. Again, your safety is important because you're no good to anyone else if you're hurt. So keep that in mind, safety first and foremost. My colleague is the trash bag queen. That is, we talked about things you want to have and customize in your go bag. Trash bags are at the top of her list because trash bags are very handy for a great variety of things. You can store stuff in it. You can wear it if it gets rainy or cold. You can carry stuff if you have to use it like almost a gurney or just to throw things down and two people can carry things. And to store stuff in. So, and certainly for sanitation purposes. So trash bags are a wonderful thing to have. You can throw them in your car, you can throw them in your go bag, you can throw them in a glove compartment, it doesn't matter. Handy things to have. But all of these are important and they certainly matter in a disaster. When you're feeling uncomfortable, it really helps to have a little bit of soap and a toothbrush and toothpaste. Makes a huge difference to your outlook on life. Some more things that these obviously are things that you would have in your kit at home. And as we discussed, having some basic stuff anywhere that you spend a lot of time is important, okay? And in terms of go bags, every member of your family should have their own and your pets should have their own. All right, So let's talk about when the disaster happens somewhere else. Keep in mind that the folks from the 2017 North Bay San Rosa area fires, that was 2017, 3 years ago. They are still in recovery. They are still rebuilding. Things are still coming into place after 3 years. So it's not something that is over with right away. But like I said, imagine if you had the resource of all your account numbers and all your insurance information ready to go. And that would make the process for you all the much easier. Okay, but we are often, as humans tend to be, we are very generous and kind and very thoughtful when things happen to our neighbors out of state or in another part of the state, and we want to help. I think this is Alabama after a hurricane, and this is Orlando, Florida, if I recall correctly. So what do we do? What can we send to help these people? And immediately you start hearing about these wonderful collections, and groups are collecting for whatever, you know, emergency happens somewhere else, the campfire, for example, or whatever, and they want to ship everything up to them. Okay, and this is what we imagine. When we send our stuff and we load up a truck full of things, and the truck is going to take off, and maybe the driver donated, you know, his or her time, and the gas for the truck was donated, and everything they came together, and boom, it goes off to the disaster. And this is what we imagine, that on the other side, somebody's going to open that box and it's going to be exactly what he or she needs at exactly this horrible time in their life, right? This is more or less the reality. So boxes and bags of stuff arrive. Now let's think about this a little bit. What are things that are in short supply in a disaster? Space. Because space is being used to store people, whether it be evacuees or maybe mutual aid. Firefighters who come from other areas need a place to stay, and they set up a base camp. So all that space that might be available in the immediate area gets taken up by shelter, evacuation centers, and staging for equipment and personnel. So there's no space in a disaster. Personnel. All the personnel are focused on helping the people who are evacuating and helping fight the fire or mitigate whatever disasters happen. So personnel are all tied up with the disaster. So there's nobody to sort through what's in, you know, this bag back here and that box over here. Okay, so now space and personnel, we don't have any. What usually happens is this trucker might have arrived to unload all these goodies that were donated. There's nobody to talk to because everybody is running in 15 directions to deal with a disaster. So they see that other people have dropped off their stuff here and they drop it off. Maybe it rains, maybe there's a storm, maybe whatever. After a couple of days, that stuff now becomes a hazardous material area because we can't give it out to people. We have no idea where it came from. So now they have to hire special teams who are trained to handle hazardous waste to come and eliminate that. So now you've cost the community that's already in a disaster more money. Does this mean that we can't be kind and we can't help our neighbors? No. I want your big heart to be as big-hearted as ever, but let's do it effectively and find the way. Now, every disaster is different, whether it's the campfire or the North Bay fires, while they're both fires, what each person needs is going to be individual at any given time. Only they know what they need at any given time. So instead of sending stuff, please find a charity that you know, someone you trust, preferably an agency that has some experience with handling disasters, and make a donation to them so they can get what that community needs at the time that they need it. Again, flexibility and options are the biggie here. And another thing is gift cards. Gift cards are huge. Very often in a disaster, when people are evacuating and they have nothing but the clothes on their back, they're given gift cards right away so they can go and shop for themselves and decide what their needs are at that moment. And so let's help them with that. So gift cards are huge. Okay. All right. So we talked a bit about water and the importance and how much water, again, you have to decide. Rotate your water out about once a year, and think about all the different ways that you use water. I think I have, yeah, different storage systems. So if you don't have a lot of room, maybe you live in an apartment and you don't have a garage or someplace to store water. These are water bricks. They hold about 3.5 gallons of water each. And these can be stacked. You can stack them in the corner of a closet or put them under the bed, as this is. There's also this type of storage, water storage option. The reason they're blue is to keep UV light out so that bacteria doesn't develop and grow in the water. So that's all some options that you can look into. Other things that you can do, and here's an example of things that we've learned from experience. If you've taken CPR in the past, you may remember the ABCs, the airway, bleeding, and circulation. But we've learned that it's more like CAB. And if you take a CPR class, we'll learn a little bit more about the importance, circulation being the top thing to consider in CPR. But please take a look at, keep an eye out on our Eventbrite site for when we are getting ready to offer CPR again. We will come up, we are working on a hybrid model that is approved by the American Heart Association so that we can get people trained. And those of you who need to renew or refresher your certification will be able to do that soon. Some places, I believe, perhaps Red Cross are already offering. So again, look into that. Look into getting a first aid kit, whether it be one that you purchase or one that you put together yourself. But most importantly, please customize things. If you do need to reach me, by all means, that is a great email where you can ask questions in the future. We're now in the gift giving season. If you're thinking about what to give people, don't forget some of these necessities, some things that you would like in your own home, and share your love, express your love to people by wanting to keep them safe. Yes, I know my nieces and nephews always love me when I give them a first aid kit and or a go bag or something to take to college with them. Oh, thank you, Auntie Sandra, so much. But it always pays off in the end. So keep that in mind. All right, now you've got all this information. You heard me blather on for hours. What to do? You can do some stuff tonight to make you, 10 times more prepared than you were this morning. You can do tonight, you can put a set of, shoes under your bed, right? Like that lady had. And if you want to use the bag idea, which I think is terrific, great. Working flashlight, very important. Okay. You can set up an out-of-state contact. Call somebody tonight and say, hey, I'll be yours if you'll be mine. You can, why do I say the gas tank half full? That's something my mom taught me, by the way. And when I came to work here for the fire department, that is the fire department rule. At a half a tank, you're empty. At a half a tank, you fill up. Why? If you had to leave now, you have 10 minutes to pack your car and go because something's coming, right? You don't want to have to stop for gas. You want to get out of the area, right? And I've heard terrible stories from the folks who evacuated the Camp Fire and the North Bay fires. Two things that I noticed, two things that they commented on. One was a lot of people were doing this. What am I doing? Watching my phone, waiting for the phone to tell me when to evacuate. They could see flames and smell smoke, but they weren't evacuating because the phone hadn't told them to. So if you have a feeling, use your instincts. If you feel it's time to go, go. You're not going to get penalized for leaving early, because a lot of stories were of people who were evacuating, right? And they leave their neighborhood and they get onto the main highway and they are on stop and go traffic. And what would normally take 5 minutes will take 45 minutes to an hour with fire on both sides of the highway. Imagine the terror and that horrible feeling. So please leave early. Don't doubt yourself. And that's another reason to have SMC alert in case. But remember, phone lines may be jammed, towers may get burned or fall. It's not everything. It's not It's not the one thing to count on. It's that having a variety of resources and tools, which is going to give you the information you need. And being observant, of course, is another thing. But keep an eye out. If you feel like you have to leave, it's time to leave, go. Don't hesitate. All right. But making preparedness part of your normal routine, the next time you go shopping, buy an extra case of water. You know, the time after that, pick up some extra batteries. It doesn't have to be all at once. It doesn't have to be $1,000 dropped in the middle of a weekend to be prepared. Like I said, a lot of the stuff you already have. It's just a matter of setting it aside in some organized fashion. All right. And things that you can do that don't cost anything, like the out-of-state contact, or keeping your gas tank half full because you're filling your tank anyway. And then you can register for SMC Alert, right? You can do that tonight too. All right, CERT training. If you're interested, like I said, we're really hoping that we'll be able to offer the next hybrid course starting in February. So I will have that on the Eventbrite site, and I'll try and advertise it through the different activity guides and newsletters that the city sends out. But keep an eye on the Eventbrite site, and you'll be among the first to know when that comes along. I will be offering the Get Ready class again next year. This is the last one for this year. And the Preparedness, the Spanish version, will also be offered next year. So please spread the word and let people know about that. All right. Are there any questions?
Not at the moment, Sandra.
Oh, fantastic.
Very clear.
Okay. Well, I really am thrilled that you were able to come and join us tonight. I hope you found the information helpful. In the next week, you'll be getting two things from me. You'll be getting a survey, monkey survey that will help us in forming and formulating this, this course to make it even better. Like I said, I will be updating things to include masks and hand sanitizer and that sort of thing in your go bag. So if you could take that survey, it would be very helpful and we greatly appreciate it. And number two, I will be sending the packet of information that you would have received had we done this face-to-face with a lot of the information that we talked about tonight. And I hope you find it helpful.
Sandra, I have a question now, maybe.
Yes, go ahead.
There's a question if the recording is available from this class.
If I recorded successfully, which I believe I did, then we will be posting it on our YouTube page. The San Mateo Consolidated Fire Department does have a YouTube page, and I will note that in the email that I send you with the URL so you're able to see it and share it with your friends.
Okay, I think that's all I have.
All right.
Questions. Thank you.
I wish you all safe, calm, and yummy holidays. Be safe, stay the course. We're going to make it through all this. And like I said, you're not preparing for one type of disaster. Your disaster kit, your first aid kit, your go bags, that covers anything and makes you much more confident, much more effective, and gives you many more options in any emergency. And think of how much calmer that's going to make you so that you can make the best decision, the clear-headed decisions that are best for you and your family. So I hope you're all safe. Have a wonderful and safe holiday, and I'll see you in the new year. Please look for my emails and take care of yourselves. Thank you so much for coming tonight.